In the heart of Manila's forgotten slums, a barefoot boy named Liam stood under a flickering streetlight, singing softly to the night. His voice, pure, aching, and full of longing, floated through the noise of tricycles and chatter. Like a prayer wrapped in melody. He didn't sing for fame. He sang for food, for his sick mother, for hope. No one knew that this same boy, this nameless voice from the streets, would one day stand on the world's biggest stage and make even Simon Cowell cry. The sun rose slowly over the crowded skyline of Manila, turning the rusted rooftops of the slums into sheets of gold. The streets were alive with the familiar chaos, the clatter of tricycles, vendors shouting prices, and children laughing barefoot through puddles that never seemed to dry. But amidst all the noise, one sound always stood out, a voice. It was the voice of a 12-year-old boy named Liam, soft yet powerful, rising above the morning rush like a gentle breeze that carried hope. He stood near a food stall, clutching a small tin can, singing songs he learned by listening to radios from passing cars. His voice was raw, filled with pain and beauty, a melody that made even the busiest people slow down, if only for a moment. Liam didn't sing for applause. He sang because it was the only way he knew to survive. Each coin that landed in his can meant a little food for the day, maybe some rice, maybe bread for his mother. At night, when the city lights dimmed and the world fell quiet, he would return to a tiny shack made of plywood and plastic sheets. Inside, his mother lay on an old mattress, coughing softly, her body weakened by illness. "Did people listen to you today, Anna?" she'd ask with a faint smile. Liam would nod, forcing a grin. "Yes, Mama," some even clapped. He'd hand her the few coins he earned, pretending it was enough. But deep inside, he wished for more, not for riches, but for a chance to lift his mother from that bed, to rebuild their broken home, to live a life where survival didn't depend on a song. Sometimes, when the nights grew too heavy, he would climb the narrow hill behind their shack and look out over the glittering city lights, so close, yet belonging to a world far beyond his reach. And there, under the blanket of stars, he would whisper, "Someday, they'll hear me." That someday came unexpectedly. One humid afternoon, as Liam sang on the corner of a busy market, a foreign tourist stopped and listened. The man's eyes softened as he heard the boy's voice, pure, aching, and filled with emotion beyond his years. Pulling out his phone, he began to record. Liam didn't notice. He just kept singing, lost in the music, his heart pouring into every note. The tourist smiled and said quietly, "The world needs to hear this boy." That night, as Liam fell asleep beside his mother, unaware of what had happened, the video of his performance began spreading online, crossing oceans, reaching millions, and touching hearts across the world. And in that small shack in Manila, a miracle had already begun. A miracle that would soon lift a slum boy's voice from the streets to the grandest stage on earth. The next morning began like any other. Liam woke up to the distant horns of jeepneys and the smell of rain lingering in the humid air. He rubbed his tired eyes and quietly stepped outside, careful not to wake his mother. His shirt was torn, his sandals mismatched, but his spirit was the same, unbreakable. He had no idea that the world had already heard his voice. While he sang barefoot in the streets, millions of people were watching him online. The tourist's video, titled "The Boy with the Angel's Voice," had exploded across social media overnight. In just hours, it spread from the Philippines to the US, Europe, and beyond. People cried, shared, and commented, "This boy deserves a chance. Someone find him. He's the next global star." But in the slums, Liam didn't have a phone or the internet. He kept singing by the corner, unaware that his life was about to change forever. By late afternoon, a group of local reporters appeared in the market, asking the vendors, "Do you know a boy named Liam? The one who sings here?" Within minutes, the whole neighborhood buzzed with excitement. The same people who once ignored him now guided the journalists through the narrow alleyways until they reached his tiny home. Liam froze as cameras surrounded him. "What's happening?" he stuttered. One of the reporters smiled and said gently, "Liam, the world has heard your voice. You've gone viral, Enoch." He didn't understand at first. Viral, famous. Those words didn't make sense to a boy who only dreamed of affording dinner. But when they showed him the video on a tablet, millions of views, comments filled with love and tears. His eyes widened. His mother, sitting weakly beside him, pressed her trembling hand to her heart. That's my son," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Days passed like a dream. Calls came from everywhere, news channels, talk shows, music producers. But one message stood out. It was an invitation from Britain's Got Talent. The email read, "We've seen your video. Liam, we would be honored to have you audition on our stage." For a long moment, Liam said nothing. Then he looked at his mother, his voice breaking. "Mama, they want me. They really want me." She smiled weakly through her tears. "Then, go. Anna, let them see what I've always seen in you." A few weeks later, with a borrowed pair of shoes and a donated suitcase, Liam stepped onto a plane for the very first time. As the engines roared and the ground disappeared beneath the clouds, he pressed his forehead to the window below him. The slums of Manila shrank into tiny specks of light, but in his heart, they burned brighter than ever. he wasn't just leaving home. He was carrying every dream, every struggle, every prayer of the forgotten, straight to the world's biggest stage. The theater lights were blinding, the crowd massive. Liam stood backstage, his small hands trembling as he clutched the microphone. Around him, contestants laughed nervously, fixed their outfits, or practiced their lines. But Liam stood quietly, staring down at his worn shoes, whispering a silent prayer. He had never seen anything like this. The grand stage of Britain's Got Talent, shining brighter than anything his eyes had ever known. The sound of thousands of people filled the air, cameras flashed, judges smiled under the spotlights, and among them sat Simon Cowell, the man known for breaking dreams as easily as making them. A voice called out, "Next, we have Liam." From the Philippines, the crowd cheered politely. A tiny boy walked onto the stage, his posture unsure, his eyes wide. The judges exchanged curious glances. He looked nervous, fragile, like he didn't belong there. Simon leaned forward. "Hello, young man. What's your name?" "Liam, sir," he stammered. "And what will you be singing for us today?" He swallowed hard. "A song for my mama." A hush fell over the hall. The music began softly, a simple piano melody. For a brief moment, Liam froze. He could almost hear the noise of the Manila streets, feel the weight of his mother's hand in his... But then, he took a breath, and he sang. His voice started faint, trembling, but within seconds, it grew, clear, powerful, angelic. Each note carried the raw ache of hunger, the tenderness of love, the strength of a child who refused to give up. The audience leaned in, spellbound. Some covered their mouths, others began to cry. As Liam reached the chorus, his voice soared, fragile, yet full of fire, like a prayer breaking through the clouds. The crowd erupted into applause, but he kept singing. Lost in the moment, his eyes closed, his heart wide open. When the final note faded, silence fell, the kind of silence that carries more power than sound ever could. Then, slowly, Simon Cowell stood. His eyes glistened with tears. He looked at Liam, speechless for a moment, before saying softly, "I've heard thousands of singers, Liam, but never one who made me feel what I just felt." That voice, it came from heaven. The crowd rose in a standing ovation. The judges pressed the golden buzzer, and golden confetti rained down, swirling around the boy who once sang 4 coins on the streets. Liam fell to his knees, sobbing. "Mama," he whispered under his breath, "they heard me. They really heard me." As the audience chanted his name, cameras zoomed in on his tear-streaked face, the face of a boy who had turned pain into power, struggle into song, and dreams into something real. That night, the whole world cried with Simon Cowell, because for the first time, a slum boy's voice had made the world believe in miracles again. The night after his breathtaking performance, Liam couldn't sleep. Even though the confetti had fallen, the cheers had echoed, and millions around the world were talking about him, he still felt the same small boy, who sang in the dusty streets of Manila. Back in his hotel room, he stared out the window at the London skyline, glittering with lights. It was beautiful, yes, but his heart was somewhere far away, in a tiny shack halfway across the world, where his mother lay sick and waiting. Weeks passed, and the story of the Filipino slum boy who made Simon Cowell cry spread like wildfire. Talk shows invited him, record labels offered contracts, and celebrities praised his voice. Yet every time he stepped on stage, he remembered that corner of the street where his journey began, the place where people once passed him by without noticing. When the show finally ended, Liam returned to Manila with more than a trophy. He came home with hope and a mission. The moment he arrived, hundreds of children ran to greet him, their eyes shining with pride. "Kuja Liam! Kuja, Liam!" they shouted, holding posters with his picture on them. He smiled, hugged them, and said softly, "You're all stars too. You just need to believe." Instead of buying luxury cars or a big house, Liam did something no one expected. He used his prize money to rebuild the same slum that once held his broken dreams. With the help of volunteers, he built a small school where children could study for free. He installed clean water pumps where mothers no longer had to walk miles. And at the center of the community, he built a music room filled with guitars, drums, and microphones. "This is where voices will never go unheard again," he said during the opening ceremony, his voice trembling. Reporters asked him, "Why give it all away, Liam? You could live a life of luxury." He smiled, looking at the children playing behind him. "Because I once sang for survival," he said. "Now, I want others to sing for their dreams." His mother, now healthier thanks to better care, stood beside him, tears glistening in her eyes. She held his hand tightly and whispered, "You didn't just change your life, Aina. You changed theirs." Liam's story inspired millions. Schools invited him to speak, foundations honored him, and fans from around the world sent letters saying his kindness had reminded them of what truly mattered. But to Liam, none of it compared to the simple joy of hearing laughter echoing through the streets that were once filled with silence. As the sun set over the rebuilt neighborhood, he sat on the same step where he once sang for coins, only this time, surrounded by smiling children, guitars in hand, singing beside him. He had proven that fame fades, but kindness echoes forever. Months had passed since Liam's triumphant return home. The world still spoke his name, but fame was no longer what filled his days. Purpose did. Every morning, he walked through the same alleys he once sang in, now transformed. The mud was gone, replaced by paved paths painted by the children. The air that once smelled of smoke now carried the sound of laughter and song. Where poverty once silenced dreams, music now flowed freely. The small school he built had become the heart of the community. Children gathered there every day, holding guitars too big for their tiny hands, learning to sing with joy instead of hunger. Liam often joined them, sitting cross-legged on the floor, teaching them harmonies and reminding them that their voices mattered. "Sing loud," he'd say with a grin. "The world listens when you believe in yourself." One evening, as the sun dipped low over the rooftops, a local television crew arrived to film a documentary about his journey. They asked Liam to sing again, not on a grand stage this time, but here, in the place where it all began. He agreed with a soft smile. The next day, the streets filled with people, children, parents, neighbors, all waiting. There were no bright lights, no confetti, no judges, just the glow of the setting sun, and the boy whose voice had once broken barriers around the world. Liam stood where he used to perform. For coins, barefoot again, wearing a simple shirt, holding the same microphone that had carried him to London. The crowd fell silent. Then, as the first note left his lips, time seemed to stop. His voice had changed, stronger now, yet still tender, still pure. He sang of struggle, love, and forgiveness. He sang of his mother's prayers, and the people who believed in him when no one else did. And as his voice rose, tears shimmered in the eyes of everyone watching. By the final note, even the cameraman had stopped filming, lost in the emotion of the moment. The applause that followed wasn't loud, it was warm, filled with love, like a heartbeat echoing through the crowd. Liam looked up, smiling through tears. He saw his mother standing nearby, her hand pressed over her heart. She mouthed the words, "I'm proud of you, Anna." He nodded softly. "This one's for you, Mama." And for every kid who ever thought their dreams were too far away, the camera slowly panned upward from the smiling faces of the children, to the rooftops glinting in the golden light, to the sky where Liam's voice seemed to rise and fade into eternity. He came from nothing but gave the world everything. His song was never about fame, it was about faith. Because when a single voice dares to dream, it can change not just one life but the world itself. And with that final note, Liam's story didn't end. It simply began again. In every heart his song had touched,